Hello everyone, Bridget Casey here with you for the November 2023 Marvelous Monthly Hop. So we are having a look at 4 cards that I made using this one set from this amazing release. I show you 3 of them and then I give you the idea for this one right here. And I wanted to do it in the end so I could show you what I was talking about. So we're using the Dynamic Duo Paradise Flowers set. And I do have the add-on, which does help us a bit as we're working through this. So I'm putting a piece of A2 cardstock in the left-hand side of my stamp wheel. And I'm doing that so that I have room for my stencil to fit. Now I'm showing you, I've gone ahead and I used the dies, and you could also doing this by just stamping the stamp and fussy cutting, or cranky cutting as I call it, out the leaves. But I used the die just to trim them out and place them over so that I can use a small blending tool and just ink up the whole panel and not have to worry about getting ink where I don't want it. I will give you a warning if you use the masking paper as I did. I forgot to put it like on my skin. If I put it on my clothes, I get cat fur, so I put it on my skin. I forgot to do that. So I did get a couple paper whoopsies, but they were fine in the end. So just do that to make sure that your masking paper is not too sticky, and roll it back on itself. You can also do the trick that I learned from the lovely Lydia, where you heat up the masking paper and it will make it so it releases better. Hopefully those tips help you if you run into the same situation I did. So we've gone ahead and I've used Water Hyacinth from the Blue Mountains ink set. I'm showing you, just got a couple whoopsies. I've cleaned my stencil and now I'm going to align it back up. And this time I'm just going ahead and I'm using from Frosted Foliage Jade with a mini blending tool this time and a small piece of masking paper. I'm just kind of placing it over areas where I'm going to ink blend and moving it around where I need it to be. You could cut out, or you could cranky cut, as I call it, some of the flowers to place over if you just want to ink with wild abandon and not have to worry about going over lines. So that's another option. But I was being lazy, and I was just kind of, using what was right in front of me, essentially. That's the part of being lazy, right? So I was being a lazy crafter. So I've got that all done. Now we're going to put the second layer on. And I'm leaning over just to make sure I have this aligned because I have a camera and lots of lights in front of me. And I'm using Eucalyptus, again from Frosted Foliage, for the second layer of the leaves, which just absolutely brings it to life. Look at that. And I keep taking my stencil off and cleaning it in between. I'm now putting my stencil back in place, and now I'm using Alpine Aster, and that's from the beautiful Blue Mountains set. I love that set of blues, and they're like bluey purples. They're just stunning. So I'm using, again, a mini blending tool, and I don't really have to mask anything off that way. Look how pretty that is. Now, on this panel, I did not stamp the outlines. I love the soft look that you get. But it is good to have options and have the outlines. So here we're going to go ahead and we're going to stamp the flower first. So we're going to go ahead right in the center of an A2 panel. Now I'm going to ink up the stamp and place another panel over it. It's not secured in any way. And I'm going to stamp the image again. Now I'm putting my masking paper flower on my hand to make sure it's not super sticky. And then I'm going to lay out my leaves where I would want them. I'm only stamping one at a time because remember, there's a border around that die. So if you cranky cut or fussy cut, you're fine to lay it right against the flower. But if you're like me or a lazy crafter this evening and use the die, then you have to be sure to move your paper. See how I moved it up and now I can stamp because you want to see that black line. Otherwise, you're going to have gaps, which of course you can fill in with our fine liner pens. Perfect thing to do. And you're probably wondering, why is she stamping this so oddly on this other piece of paper? We'll get to that in a minute. So I'm masking off the leaf there because I wanted to put another one. It just looked very bizarre to my eye. So we always like those triangles and threes. So I'm going to leave the flower in position there, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start ink blending my leaves. So I'm going to do the same process where I use jade and eucalyptus, again from Frosted Foliage. So we will do the first layer, and then I'm just going to line up the second layer right over that. And I just picked a random leaf that matched. I didn't line it up in any way, shape, or form beyond that. Now I'll lift up my other masks. Be careful when you lift these up. And I noticed I had a little bit of a white line there that was really bothering me. So I just went in with my mini blending tool and kind of went over that again to get rid of it. So again, I'm lining up my mask on the inside of the black line. Then I'll go ahead and I'm actually starting with eucalyptus first. Then I'll go in with jade. You can do it either way you would like to do it. Doesn't matter. I know we usually go light to dark, but you can go dark to light sometimes too. And then I got a smudge. As much as I tried to cover things up, that's why I threw my hands up in the air. I'm like, oh, it's a smudge. So here we are again, jade and eucalyptus for the leaves, and we'll use water hyacinth and alpine aster for the floral. What I'm doing is I wanted to show you how to really get a lot out of this set. So I'm showing you how to do it as prepared with the stencil, like one piece. And then I'm also showing you how to make a 1-layer card with this. And as well, I'm showing you how you can create just like a normal stamp set where you cut out the stamp and the floral in the leaves and you layer them up on one of your favorite, embossing folders. So that's kind of where I was going. So now for the floral, I am masking off with all my little leaves. I'm making like a little bunker for the flower so that I can blend on my color. And I start with my mini blending tool. I almost think, I switch over to the small. The small is so terrific for these smaller areas, but not quite large, a little bit bigger than the mini. But you could do it with the mini. It just takes a little longer. And I'm still recovering from shoulder surgery, so I'm trying to not do a lot of ink blending, but I love it so. All right, so now this is our 1-layer card, as you may have guessed. So we're going to go ahead, and it doesn't end up being a 1-layer, but it's because of the sentiment. It's not because of the card. It could be a 1-layer. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to blend. And I go back to my small blending tool for the floral. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put on our water hyacinth and our alpine aster colors on here. And again, lazy crafter, I just laid stencil 2 over the top. I didn't want to remove everything. Everything was masked off. So I was like, all right. So there we go. Now I'm pulling it off. And again, I get a smudge. So I'm like, but it just shows no matter how many masks you use. So here's my sentiment. I was going to use the Find Your, but I really liked the Warm Greetings. And then I found that the lapis lazuli, the lightest color, works really well with the Frosted Foliage to cover up my ink blending whoopsies. So you guys, I know you guys won't tell anybody, so nobody will ever know, right? All right, and here we go. Now we are going to get a base for our panel. So the panel the flower is on, and I'm using alpine aster here. The panel that it's on was 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, but I trimmed it down to be 4 by 5 1/4, and then it looked lopsided. So of course, then I had to trim it down again so that we got to 3 3/4 by 5. And then I put it on this panel and I'm like, oh goodness. So we go as my lives with Altenew are called crafty adventures. There's a reason. It's always a crafty adventure, my friends, with me. So I decided to take out my Dazzling Diamond cardstock and I'm going to gut the paper, which I know sounds horrible, but it just means you cut the inside of the paper out because nobody's going to see it. So then I realized I'm not doing as good as I think I am because that doesn't help me. So I go now and put it back in my trimmer, line it up, and I cut 1/8 of an inch off each side, and then we're good to go because that's my 1/4 of an inch. Then I can layer it on there, and I am golden, so to speak. So I am going to use liquid glue here because there is a lot of damp ink on there, and it gives me a second to kind of wiggle if I have to. Then we're going to put a lot of foam tape, which I'm not going to make you watch it all. And we will put our panel on our card, and then we will pop our greeting down there, and that card is complete. Yay! Okay, second card. This one we're just trimming down to 4 by 5 1/4 because I loved the shine. So I thought, let's get some of the brushed silver cardstock out. So that's what we did. And again, I'm gutting the inside of it because I can't waste a single 1/4 of an inch of this cardstock. It's so beautiful, all of it. So I mat that on there. And I got one of my Altenew A2 card bases because I was a lazy crafter, using my glue tape to get my frame put down on my card panel. And then I'll go ahead and I'll put my panel on there. And I'm using a sentiment from the Build-A-Garden this month. So you can mix and match with these amazing releases. And here I'm showing you, you can die cut these flowers out of the stenciled background, add them with foam tape, and pop them up. This is the card that I show you in the end. I didn't show you how to create it because all it is what I'm showing you here, just die cutting out your florals, adding foam tape, and popping them on the panel. So it's really a simple process, but I wanted to show you that additional idea because it really, really extends the life of your dies. So now I'm using Timeless Sentiments, the thank you from that. This is going to be one of my favorites as well. Jennifer McGuire mentioned, people are going to be like, oh my goodness, she's using it again. And I think I'm going to be the same. I love this font. So I'm tucking my flower, and this is just like a regular stamp and die set where we, stamp our flower, stencil it in, and pop it on there. So just another use for this amazing stencil set. So we have 3 cards there, and this is the card I was telling you about. I didn't put a sentiment, but look at that dimension on there. So I hope that these cards have inspired you to look at the dynamic duo, Paradise Flowers, a little bit differently. I hope you also have an amazing journey on this fabulous hop with all of this inspiration for these just always amazing products that are released by Altenew each month. And I can't wait to see you back here really soon. Until then, my friends, happy crafting.